What I saw among the Democrats that I worked with was that they were unable to draw a dividing line between the moderate types and the radicals. So, and this is something maybe I'll push you about. So, for example, I went to Washington. I talked to a lot of Democrats, senators and congressmen, about what I saw happening in the broad public sphere, but also in the Democrat Party. And I asked them this question: when does the left go too far? And none of them were able to answer. And even though it's completely obvious that the left can go too far, I mean, that's one of the cardinal lessons of the 20th century. And I suggested that the left goes too far when it pushes equity. And all I got as a response from the Democrats, senators and congressmen alike was, well, the people who say equity, they just mean equality of opportunity. And that's not what they mean. They mean equality of outcome, and that's not the same thing at all. And I saw in that inability to draw that distinction part of the reason that the Democrats have shifted in the direction that you described, in the direction that seems to be opposed in many ways to the best interests of both the working class and the middle class, but also characterized by this incredible strain of illiberalism and corporate fascist collusion, the sort of thing that you document, for example, in the relationship between the power elites and big pharma. And so my sense on the Democrat side, I couldn't shift the Democrats to the point, the ones that I was talking to the point where they would draw a distinction between them and the radicals. It just didn't seem possible. And so why do you think, I don't think the universities are salvageable, by the way. So why do you think the Democrats are salvageable?
Well, I don't think we have a choice. We have a two-party system, and I'm a lifelong Democrat. I feel like my party's being taken away from me in some ways by the kind of ideologies, the extreme ideologies, and really, the departure of common sense that I think troubles you and a lot of, the things that you think about. And, but I mean, why do I think it's salvageable? Because I'm talking to people on the street. There's so many people who have responded to my candidacy positively because they see it as return to, being a Kennedy Democrats, the Democratic Party that they loved and that they, that they thought reflected their values, their ideologies, and their best interests and the best interests of this country. And that was likely to, build an America that they can be proud of, that their children can be proud of, that has moral authority around the world. And, all of the things that we'd like to see, that I think most people would like to see. I think the Democratic Party has been hijacked, as you say, by kind of some extreme ideologies and in some cases kind of irrational, thought patterns. And I think that kind of the idea of returning it to common sense is appealing to a lot of people. And I'm just thinking those things, and they seem to be reflected both in my polling and in the kind of reaction I get from people on the street and on Twitter, and so it's a melange of things that makes me feel that way. But I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, part of the reason that I was willing to work with the Democrats to begin with, and I did that for about 5 years, was because I think like you do, according to what you just said, that, well, you kind of have to work with the institutions that exist because those are the institutions that exist. And there seems to be some utility in trying to pull the Democrats, let's say, back towards the center as much as that's possible. But I found that I think we had some success in that regard. But it was in particular and I see this on the conservative side too, by the way, with the unwillingness to see, this is probably more true in Canada even, what is really at the core of this progressive ideology that stresses equity, for example, because equity is an unbelievably dangerous doctrine. And as far as I can tell, it's indistinguishable from the sort of Marxist ideas that swept across Eastern Europe and the Soviet Union and China, for that matter, in the 20th century, and that still prevail, certainly in China. And it isn't obvious to me at all that the Democrats have taken this with any degree of seriousness. And, that's producing all sorts of strange pathologies on the cultural front.